All right, guys, we just finished an amazing fight night. I am blown away by how much fun that entire card was. I feel like we haven't had a good fun card like that in a while. I'm going to go through most of the fights on the card and what my thoughts of them were. Not every single one because they weren't all amazing, but the ones that were good enough to carry the entire card. Let's jump straight away with that Sean Strickland main event. Oh my God, that was so much fun to watch that second round, wasn't it? First, let's talk about the fight. That second round was fun, but let's talk about the fight. Abus came out straight away and opened up with the double eye poke, which is a very good move. You don't see it a lot. What that will do is completely blind your opponent, allowing you to move forward and win the rest of the fight. The disadvantage of that move though, and probably why you don't see it a lot, is because it is unfortunately illegal. And Sean was hurt from that. Sean was rattled from that. You could see in his post-fight press conference, he was talking about how he wanted to give up. He felt that in him, but then he heard the crowd, he heard the fight fans out there, and he wanted to press on with it. And he used the fight in the fighter and pushed on. And then, we got into that first round, and I gave the first round to Abus. I feel like he did more work, but everyone was talking about, like, you were really overly exerting yourself here, and Sean is just doing his, like, weird Sean Strickland stance that seems to only work for Sean Strickland. And he was just being very conservative, as Sean Strickland is with everything in his life. And we move into the second round of the fight. Sean Strickland breaks away from his conservative stance and just destroys Abus with a jab. Like, picks him apart completely and then starts launching the 1-2, and it just starts to fall apart from there. And as Sean Strickland said he wanted to do, he was just sparring with a heavy bag and just destroyed him completely. Now, there was so many people on the Abus train leading up to this fight. And look, I get it. He's the German fighter. He's the German fighter. And, you guys haven't had a lot of fighters from Germany, so I get it. You want to, hype him up. There's a lot of hype going into him, but I'm going to start calling him Anus. Anus, not Abus. Mate, you are booked in on an 8-week training camp to fight a main event against Sean Strickland, someone who has a lot of pace in him, goes the distance. And by the second round, by the second minute of the second round, after you had just been sitting on the stool, you were gassed, like completely gassed, breathing heavy, looking up at the clock. Are you telling me the best prospect from that entire country has got 7 minutes of fight time in him? Pathetic. Really, really pathetic. I don't understand how you can still be on the Abus train after that. You got beaten by a jab and you got beaten by cardio within 7 minutes. That's horrible. That's horrible. Like, prospects should be able to do better than that. So, really disappointing. Let's move on to Sean Strickland's post-fight press interview. He's calling for a title against the first Chinese champion. And to be honest, why not? Now look, I'll be very honest with you. I do believe that Izzy absolutely dismantles Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland is too one-dimensional for such a smart fighter like Israel Adesanya. But, and we imagine the fight week, the press conference going into that pay-per-view of Sean Strickland versus the real Chinese champion. It would be so much fun to watch. It would be so good for the sport. I mean, it's one of those things that you kind of have to see. And for anyone saying that Strickland doesn't deserve it, not 1 month ago, we were talking about Israel Adesanya versus Dricus du Plessis before they even booked in the Robert Whittaker fight. We were making excuses as to why Dricus does deserve a shot against Israel Adesanya. Strickland's always been in the top 5, top 10. That Cannonier fight was bloody close. That one could have gone either way. Really, that Cannonier fight was... I mean, Strickland deserves to be there more than du Plessis does at this point. So if we're making excuses as to why du Plessis can fight Israel Adesanya, does deserve the championship, we should be doing the same thing for Strickland. I understand that the UFC and Disney do not want Sean Strickland as a champion, but I mean, it's a gamble that you'd be willing to take for the money that that pay-per-view would generate. Everyone on the right would be backing their boy Sean Strickland, and everyone on the left would be wanting to see Israel Adesanya knock him out, which I think more likely than not, Israel Adesanya would knock him out. The whole fight would just be fun to watch. The whole week would be fun to watch. There'd be so much going on. It would be great. It would be great. So I am 100% down for Sean Strickland versus Israel Adesanya to fight for the championship. Absolutely. Book that fight in. Although that does crush me because Whittaker is my boy. I need to see Whittaker as a champion one more time. But hey, this is why we love the sport. These moments are why we love the sport. These cards are why we love the sport. Let's move down to the next fight that I wanted to talk about. Dawson versus Demir. Look, I was enjoying the fight as it went on. I gave the first round to Dawson. I actually scored it as a 10-8 to Dawson because of the damage that Dawson did towards the end of the round. And the second round, I scored it a 10-9 because it was just grappling. There wasn't too much damage being done. And then by the third round, I completely zoned out. I didn't care anymore. Dawson, he's going on the pile of boring fighters that I have here in my head. Aljo, Bilal, that whole region of Dagestan, they all get humped on this pile that I call boring and I don't really want to watch. I'll watch them because I want to pay attention to the whole sport, but I'm not excited for it. And Dawson, you're on that pile now. Good for you. You got to win. Your call out was nuts. Absolutely nuts. No one is going to be cheering for you. The UFC are going to do everything they can to keep you away from pay-per-views, just like they're doing everything they can to keep Bilal Muhammad away from a title shot. You're now in that pile, mate. Well done. You got to win while ruining your career. Let's move on. Morales versus Max Griffin. I came into this fight hyped. I wanted to see how Morales would go. I personally thought that it was too much of a step up for him. I was interested to see whether or not he could pull that step up off. I thought Max Griffin would be too technical in an experienced way to lose that fight, and Morales was the one who showed his technicality. The first round was a bit iffy, hit to Griffin on damage, but then the second and third is where Morales actually started to win, and in a way that I really enjoyed seeing. He stayed in the middle of the cage, he was very composed, he picked his shots, he showed a great fight IQ, his takedown defense is amazing, really amazing, and he's very smart on the feet. He didn't overextend anything. When he saw a finish coming, he started to go for it. When he didn't feel like it was there, he went back, and he was doing a lot of resetting in the middle of the cage. I think there's a big difference between like uncontrolled breathing, looking at the clock, and a big slow and resetting in the middle of the cage. And I really like to see that. So Morales, I'm on the train. I'm a fan. I'm going to be watching his next fight very, very closely. I can't wait to see where his career goes. Buy me a ticket. I'm all on. I'm all on. I'm all in. I'm all on, and I'm all in. Next fight that I wanted to talk about was Rizabov versus Ferreira. What can you say about it? It was quick. It was fun. It was like my sex life. Good on him. The next one that I wanted to dive into a little bit was Kevin Lee versus Renat Fakretanov. Kevin Lee always has, always will be, shit. Ever since he fought for that interim title, he has had the worst main character syndrome I think I've ever seen in any UFC fighter. He does every single press conference believing that he's the greatest thing to ever happen to MMA and then go on a spectacular losing streak. The same thing happened when he went to Eagle FC. The same thing happened when he came back to the UFC now. Talking about how he doesn't deserve to be where he is ranked on the card. He's on the prelims. He's such a bigger name than that. You're no good, Kevin. You've never been that good. It's disappointing to see. I don't know why you picked this fight as your first fight back into the UFC. You can't even win a prelims fight. Please retire and just train at your gym. Just become a coach, because this idea that you're the greatest fighter out there that could have beaten Khabib and that you have all the skills, you're actually insane, Kevin. Like, I understand you need to have some self-confidence as a fighter, but you might actually be a little bit crazy. You poor, poor man. Moving on to Brito versus Wilson. This was something that really annoys me a lot. Fighters can get away with a lot in the cage when it comes to illegal moves. You go back to the main event, there was the eye poke that really could have changed the fight for Strickland, and it was just a hard warning. This one is one of those ones where it's the same thing. Brito was being told to stop grabbing the cage, and eventually the ref came in and just moved Brito's hand away from the cage. Well, he got a great position on an opponent that was below him because he was using the cage to keep himself up. And then he pounded Wilson into unconsciousness, all because he got to keep the fight standing. Every UFC fighter should just go ahead and cheat, because until you get that hard warning, there are no consequences for you leading up to that cheating moment. And because there's no consequences leading up to that cheating moment, you can get your opponent down on the ground and just rain down heavy shots, all because you were holding the cage to keep you up. And then you get given the win and we all just move on like nothing happened. His call out was awesome. The way that he called out Dan Ige had so much energy, and it's going to make such a good promo. I want to see more fighters like that in the UFC. That's what I love to watch. Again, another reason that like this card was so good. The personalities were great, the knockouts were great, the fights were violent. Finally, the last fight that I wanted to talk about, one of my favorite fights in a long time, Elvis Brenner versus Kutateladze. This is why I love the UFC. When I talk about seeing the fight in the fighter, Elvis Brenner had that. The kid was rocked. He was bleeding. That first round did not go his way. And then he just bit down on his mouth guard and played the game and fought his way back into the fight, getting a awesome finish. I love that so much. I am going to be such a big Elvis Brenner fan moving forward. All the shit that I give the fighters that I just gave to Abus Magomedov and to Kevin Lee, for all the shit that I give the fighters, I can't give enough praise to fighters like this. The fighters that are down in the ditches and just keep the fight going and keep pushing forward. Elvis Brenner, he's got to win the bonus fight of the night for that. He absolutely has to win the bonus fight of the night for that. I hope that he gets a lot of Instagram followers. I hope that he gets his name put up. He's on main cards instead of prelims. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I don't know how much more praise that I can put on a fighter other than great work. I hope you get paid. I hope you get fans. I hope you get good placement on the cards. Thank you for giving us that kind of fight, Elvis Brenner. Thank you. All right, guys, they were my thoughts. Let me know down in the comments, what do you think is next for Morales? I'd actually like to see him go against Ponzinibbio in September. Let me know what you think down in the comments. And what do you think we should be doing with Sean Strickland? Does he deserve a title fight after that? Is there even a conversation to be had for Strickland getting a title fight after that? As you know, I believe that if we can talk about Duplessis getting one, we absolutely can talk about Strickland getting one. Or do we rebook a Strickland versus Cannonier and have that little head-to-head really solved so we know who's sitting on top of each other in the rankings? Izzy needs opponents, and it's good to see that some of these guys that he has and hasn't fought before are still there putting on great fights, so that division isn't quite dead and boring yet. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think, and I will see you all in the next video.